Welcome back inside the film room. I'm your host, Zach Goins, and today I'm joined by Luke Tennie, who plays Sean on the upcoming Apple TV Plus series Shrinking. Luke, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thanks very much. I'm great. It's good to be here. And I like your BB-8 that I see behind you. That's real cute.
That's
I
the
like
Star
her.
Wars stuff down there, you
Ah,
know?
so good. So good. Love it.
Amazing. Well, we're not talking Star Wars today. Today we're talking Shrinking. It's a new comedy from Brett Goldstein, Bill Lawrence, Jason Segel, hitting Apple TV Plus, and it follows a character played by Jason Segel, Jimmy, who's a grieving therapist. And he kind of throws the rule book out the window. He starts giving people advice straight from the heart. He's telling them exactly what he thinks. So Luke is, or not Luke, excuse me, Sean is one of those patients that gets this kind of hardcore advice. So tell us how, in your own words, how does Sean fit into all of this, and what's his character all about?
Sean's a tough character. He's somebody who he served in the military. He served in Afghanistan. He came back with some demons. He's struggling with PTSD, and he was court mandated to go to anger management, where he can navigate that and figure out how to stop snapping at every little thing, because
Right.
he would get violent. But Jimmy, he just, instead of just talking about his feelings, he takes Sean out. He takes him to a gym. He starts to have to work through this physically so he can figure out
Right.
what's going on. And he uses that as a window to really open Sean's heart to communicate about what's really getting to him.
Right. We see a lot of that over the course of the first episode, and I'm sure we'll see even more throughout the whole season. But when we meet Sean, like you said, he's kind of just this ball of anger, like everything's compressed inside of him. And we see, a little bit of that budding relationship with Jimmy in the first episode. But for you as an actor, when you're approaching a role, how do you go about that, knowing that, one second you'll be cracking jokes and doing that dry humor that we see a lot from Sean, and then the other times he'll just be flipping a switch and having to let loose.
Great question. I think it just comes down to the preparation and also the dialogue. When the words are written so well, there's clear switches, shifts, and changes in the dialogue. So I don't need to sit there and figure out, oh, well, how do I make this transition work? If I pay attention to the script, it's built in the whole flow.
Right.
So trusting the genius of Bill, Brett, Jason, Neil, I can really kind of settle into just the way that they planned for this flow to go. And it just takes me along for the ride. So long as I have my character prepared, so long as I say those words, the story will be told truthfully and clearly.
Well, I don't want to undersell. The performance is still a huge part of it too, and you crush it here in the six
Thank you.
episodes I've seen so far. So it's not all the writing, but speaking
Thank
of
you.
the writing, those guys you mentioned, particularly Brett and Bill, obviously have Ted Lasso to their name. That's an Apple show that is known for, it's a comedy, but it's also carrying this huge emotional baggage, these real world issues, and that's something that very much is present here in Shrinking as well. Like you mentioned, PTSD. We're talking about,
Hmm.
trauma, grief, mental health, terminal illness, all of these very heavy topics. So for you, when you're picking projects, when you're just like looking at this as a whole, how important is that to you to have something that has so many layers, so much depth to it, rather than just a one-dimensional sitcom?
Mm. Well, I haven't done much comedy, and I knew I wanted to. My first
Mhm.
comedy was actually the gig I shot before Shrinking, called Players. It was really the first set that kind of taught me how to operate when the goal is to get laughs, but also to be truthful. But when it came to Shrinking, to be clear, an actor at my level does not pick anything. You just are happy to get a job. And so, look, man, I'm just grateful to be here talking with you. It's just a good life, you know what I'm saying? Boxes are being checked as we speak. I'm just grateful for the opportunity. But Shrinking in particular would have been one that I definitely would have picked if it were up to me. So I'm glad to
Right.
be here because this is a show that wants to make people laugh, but also seems to be built to challenge those who may seem comfortable and kind of inspire people as well to make changes in their individual lives, because this show will demonstrate how if you make changes you can affect change around you.
Right. And, obviously the biggest change that kickstarts all of this in the show is what Jimmy's doing, just throwing the rule book out, giving this I don't know if wisdom's the right word for it, this advice. So for you, in real life, what is the worst advice that you have ever gotten, whether it's professional, personal, anything that's on, Jimmy's level of just like, here it is. I don't care if I'm supposed to say it or not.
Oh man, I don't feel bad because I was given this advice, but I always knew it was bad. But I got advised to fix my teeth because I got this. I'm like, yo,
You're
I
rocking
look
it.
so cute with this gap, bro. As a matter
I
of
mean,
fact, I
I
need
believe
my
you're
teeth
called
fixed.
I believe you're called beautiful in this show, and look at those teeth. That's beautiful.
Ah, my man, I appreciate that. But like, I love this little gap, and I actually do need my teeth fixed for something else, and I want to make sure that this stays
Leave it.
because
Don't touch it.
people in my family have it, and I was like, that ain't gonna be no problem. Like, bruh, like,
It's character.
it's just me. You know what I mean? So
Exactly.
that was some bad advice. And hey, yo, you right. Now that we think about it, Sean's beautiful because he got the same smile as me. Then I guess the smile's working, so we ain't got to worry about it. You know?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Well, advice being, sort of a theme we're talking about here. You're
Yeah.
walking onto a set with some legends, some icons. You've obviously got Harrison Ford, who's just an all-timer in cinema. And then you've got Jason Segel, a comedy star. You've got two of the creative geniuses behind Ted Lasso. What is it like to be, like you mentioned, sort of like the newcomer coming into this group of just like, how are you not walking on a set being starstruck, but knowing that you're an integral part of this? You're all equals here.
Mm. Well, I am starstruck all still, you know, now, right now. But they're so warm and caring and professional that it doesn't interfere
Right.
with the work. As a matter of fact, I would say it does interfere, but positively. It enhances the work because if it wasn't for that star power, there wouldn't be this great buzz. And the reason why they have this star power is because of the work that they've done, not just being names. You get a name
Right.
from working. So I'm grateful that I get the opportunity to say I've worked with people who just demolish box offices and TV ratings. Like that's so cool. But more than that, now these are people who I've come to respect on a personal and individual level because of how they
Right.
conduct themselves as professionals on set.
That's amazing they say never meet your heroes, but it sounds all positive in your case. But you
Sounded
pointed
good
out
to me, man.
you pointed out the BB-8 back there. So when you're meeting Harrison Ford, is that Han Solo to you? Are you
Oh, absolutely. Are you kidding me? Also, he shot first, but we ain't gonna talk too much about
I don't
that.
have to get into
You know?
that. He told you the
Oh,
inside scoop.
yeah, he did. But and it's just it's so moving to see him really kind of open himself up to comedy now.
Hmm.
And the man is so funny. It breaks me. Like I'll be laughing when he ain't even doing it in character. He got jokes. Like he is a joke teller. He'll be like, so, and like, I don't know, a doctor walks into a bar, and I'm like, oh, it's Joke Town now. Okay, what's
Amazing.
going on? It's so amazing. And then Jason too. Hey Harrison. And then I'm sitting here watching these two people who I respected for the entirety of my life, just having a good time, and I'm having a good time. Watching people have a good time, it's a good time, man. It's all a
Yeah.
good time.
You're just taking it all in. Well, before we wrap up here, one last question. I like to do this with my Apple TV Plus interviews specifically because there is such, this wide catalog of great series. If you could swap roles or pop to another series for a cameo, which would it be? You've got Ted Lasso, you've got Severance, you've got all sorts of the morning show. What are you thinking?
If you asked me a year ago, I would have said Ted Lasso. But I don't know if there's any room for me on that show. They have a pretty perfect cast. But now for sure it would be Severance because that show's
Oh,
just starting,
fantastic.
and that is one of the best that is the best science fiction television show I think I've ever seen. I can't like it's so grounded in such a like all the characters are so real. It unnerves me, but the science fiction element isn't visual at all. Yet the visual component is such a big part of the show with the elevator and the switching and the like it's just that show is a masterclass in like making you feel unsettled and still rooting for people who may be doing the wrong thing. Oh, it's so good.
It's
Yeah.
truly brilliant. Thank you so much, Luke, for chatting with me today. It was a blast. I'm looking forward to seeing more from Sean and Shrinking this season.
Thanks so much. I appreciate talking with you today.